for somebody who's maybe just done their exams and they say, hey, I want to be an FP&A? What skills do you look for?
I would look for those competencies of being commercially savvy. When I look for FP&A, I don't necessarily look on their qualifications, because I need to have a right character, the person who will be comfortable to get out of from the laptop, go and see the operations, speak with the people in the business, understand what's happening, understand the business, and then obviously receive a result, produce a report, and then interpret the numbers, give a commentary, but in a meaningful and understandable way to operations.
Thank you for listening to the podcast thus far. The one favor I would ask, if you can, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, is to press the follow and subscribe button on whatever media platform you listen to us, as it helps us grow our network and grow the podcast. So thank you and enjoy the podcast. Hello, and welcome back to Alchemy Uncensored podcast. We're on our third season, and we promise you that we'll bring in more valuable insights into the financial and tax sector of the UAE. Today, we've got Olga Drevina. Olga is a seasoned finance leader with 15 years plus professional experience in consumer goods and food services industry. A commercially focused CFO with a track record of successful financial transformations, a trusted partner to the CEO and the leadership team, delivering on committed results, leading strategies execution, spearheading M&A, and restructuring projects. Olga's story is particularly fascinating because her career journey is truly global, from the Ukraine to the UK, then Asia, and now the Middle East. She's navigated different cultures and markets while building a successful career, all within the same company. She'll be sharing her unique insights on how to build a global career, no matter where life takes you. So, Olga, great to see you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for inviting, Conor.
No, perfect. Well, look, I've just given you a bit of an introduction on your experience. I can't do it justice. So if you could tell our listeners, a bit about yourself, where you're from, where you've been, and a bit of a walkthrough through your history, please. Thank you.
So I'm born and raised in Ukraine. I followed a traditional route, studied in school, university, post-university, landed a postgraduate job with a renowned global international company, which was Nestle at the time. I was raised in a family of the entrepreneurs. My parents had their own business, flour wholesale business. And from a very young age, I've been exposed to that business environment. And later on, when I was in university, I actually got involved and helped them to run some of the parts of the business or oversaw them. So that in some way, I guess, shaped me as a professional. A professional gave me that, business savvy experience, seeing and experience what my parents were going through. Then, at the same time, when I started my career with Nestle, I met who is now my husband, and he was living in the UK.
Yeah.
And I made a bold decision that I'm going to leave everything behind. Follow my heart and move to UK. And this is in some way how my first international move with the company has happened. So at that time, I was already about 3 years in Nestle. I was a high performer, a talent as a company. I built that reputation. I had a strong network, so I engaged my network to try to see if I can get a role in.
So this is actually, within Nestle then you influenced people within the business to help push you across to the...
Yes.
It's an important thing we talk about for people working in companies, that it's so important to build those relationships with people, because you never know when you might need them to help you out.
Absolutely. That's a key. Being proactive, being visible in a company, being the one who engages and involved in a different topic. I was working at the time as a junior business partner in one of the business segments. So I was heavily involved with sales team, marketing team, our procurement team, demand planning team. So people knew who is Olga, the management knew who is Olga. So when I came and said, look, I will be moving abroad and I would like to continue my career with Nestle, would you be able to help and support? There was no conversation or no pushback. Of course, they introduced me to the contacts who they knew through find me right contact. So there was a future, I would say my career future, no guarantee, but there was the people in Nestle UK already knew about me. There was actually interesting situation where eventually I got a role in a Nestle UK, and in my induction meeting, I was talking to my line manager, and he laughed. He said, I was so curious to know who's Olga because I heard about you from about 3 different stakeholders in a company who are not connected. And they came to me and saying, oh, there is a lady, he's moving to UK. She would like to continue to working for Nestle. Would you have a role for her? So he was very keen to meet me and already had his mindset that, yes, I would, if I have availability, I will give you a role, which eventually happened. Afterwards, 8 years later, I was already working for Sodexo. At the time, my husband given an opportunity to relocate to Hong Kong, and same without a backup plan for my career due to maternity, we made the decision to move. Fortunately for me, it was a role available in Hong Kong with Sodexo as a finance director for Hong Kong. Again, I didn't know about that role. Funny enough, at that time, I actually even didn't know that Sodexo in Hong Kong existed and there was an entity. And again, I found out about the role and was connected with the people for that role through my network again, because I was probably 1 month before leaving UK. I came to work, notified my line manager, I'm not coming back from maternity leave because I'm moving abroad. I will be living in Hong Kong. Keen to continue working for Sodexo. Anyone you can connect me with to see if there are opportunities. And, it was like a chain effect. It's just continued, took off, and I got introduced to the management within Sodexo. And I landed in Hong Kong, and 2 days later, I was already interviewing was a role in Hong Kong, which then eventually I took.
And you, of course, then so you did a bit of time in Hong Kong, and then here we are today.
Here we are today. So obviously moving to Asia was and embracing the ways of working in Asia was very different
so
to what
Ukraine,
I was used
London, then to Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, yes.
Yeah, very, very different.
Very different. So ways of working in Asia was different to what I was used to, but I embraced the culture, stayed true to myself, and that's what made me to stand out in that market.
The questions I have now as well, because your profile, you were an industry trained candidate, because in Britain, for example, or India, they're very precious about, they need to be Big Four, they need to do audit, while you were commercial from day one. So, you started with Nestle, you went down the SEMA route, you were industry trained. So, your profile is different than some other profiles out there. And it just shows for our listeners, especially younger people, that it's not all about getting your Big Four. Working for, audit, it is important for some roles, but you're just a case in point where you went in industry from day one, and that sets you up very well for the rest of your career.
Absolutely. And look, when I started my career, I had a choice. So it was a postgraduate role, which I had. And I had a choice. It's either to go traditional accounting or I had the choice to go business controlling, financial control, business partnering. And I guess, because of my prior experiences, my parents running the business, I always was more tend to go the commercial route, and I follow that route. And eventually, ironically, the only true accounting experience is probably more my education, which is, learning about debit credits. I never had the work or related role where I needed to apply it. Doesn't mean I don't know it. I do know it, but commercial route took me, being a commercial route took me where I am these days.
I said it's great to have, profiles, in that, because in jobs in the UAE, you always see these, they need to have this, where it's great to have someone from the other background. So where we're at now, obviously you're in Dubai now, and I guess the real thing that I love about your profile, because it's so common for senior people, is that, you went around the world. You experienced different things, you experienced working with different people, different cultures, and now you've come to the melting pot, probably, of every culture in the world is in this city that we're in now. I just think having that exposure is probably, as you probably said, has made you stand out.
Yes.
So I guess where we're trying to get to now is very well experienced. So, what advice would you give younger finance professional, someone who's maybe just started their career in Nestle or, just done their exams?
My advice would be visible. Proactively get involved beyond your finance responsibilities. Be interested what's going on in the business. Don't wait for the invitation on the meeting. If you know the meeting is taking place and you are curious about this topic, you want to learn, raise your hand and say, can I attend the meeting? Rarely you will be told no in this way. Don't be shy to share your ideas, to share your views, even if you are not a subject matter. And most important, be brave.
Yeah, I think
be brave. If the opportunity comes and you actually don't know when it's going to lead you and you don't have it all on plan built, how it's going to work out, still try. I always had, with all my moves, and it was a bold decision to move to UK, then from UK move to Hong Kong and now Middle East. I always had this thought, if things don't work out, I can always go back where I started.
Exactly. And I think the biggest points there, curious and brave. That's, and I think a lot of people, especially the younger generation, that's why being in the office, building those relationships, having the small talk, going for a coffee with someone in your team, that's where those relationships and confidence are built. While I think if everybody is behind a laptop screen, working remotely, it takes away from that.
And, sometimes as well, you do catch the people, they don't feel like they're in the right place to share their ideas because, I'm working finance department, I'm an expert on my finance, I can advise on how to improve cost, how to improve revenue potentially. And you don't feel like you're in the right place to advise something on the marketing. Like, be confident to bring your idea. Don't be shy, bring your ideas. I have a great example. I was working for one of the categories in Nestle. I was overseeing the business unit which were placing coffee solutions, coffee machines into the people's offices, cafeterias. And we had an issue where we had a build-up of obsolete machines. The one who already been placed with the clients, they returned. We still had depreciation on those machines, but they were sitting in warehouse, costing us money, not bringing revenue. At the same time, we had a lot of clients who were pushing back, saying that our solutions were quite expensive and that if they were lower price, they would have taken them. And I just threw out there, thought, well, how about we launch a package for the pre-loved coffee machines? And we offer at a reduced rental rate, same service which was coming together with our brand new machines, same service for pre-loved machines, but at a reduced rate. And
got the stock out.
And it was a successfully implemented, a successful idea, and we managed to reduce our obsolete building up stock. So
yeah, good commercially savvy.
Yes, so my problem for me, I had this cost sitting on the P&L, which we couldn't shift and move, and I came up with suggestions which were more like, marketing category idea, but they loved it and they implemented it.
Went for it. And then CFO, what is it actually like to be a CFO right now? You've been obviously senior finance for a good few years at this stage between Hong Kong now here. Like, how have you seen it evolve, change? How's it been working for a big company?
So fundamentally, the role of the CFO remains to protect business and to protect owners' assets. However, the role now has evolved significantly towards expectation that the CFO is also a co-pilot alongside with the CEO who drives the business. So for me, CFO should be entrepreneur. As I mentioned, don't be shy, get involved, share your ideas, drive the strategy. CFO is also a conductor, the person who connects the dot between the functions and makes the things happen, like conductor orchestrates the orchestra, we orchestrate the actions within a business and connect the departments or make departments talk to themselves. Be a cultural steward. Today is important that creating a culture of efficiency, accountability, and transparency across the whole organization, not just the finance. And that comes through the governance process, which I would say CFO nowadays is driving within organizations.
For somebody that's working in a company where they need to influence other stakeholders, maybe other regional CFOs, other CEOs, how have you went about that? Is that just building the relationships or, any advice on that?
Building a relationship is important. You need to understand your stakeholders, and you need in some way change yourself a little bit, your style of approaching, depending who the
Mirroring,
personality is. I worked with, cooperated with some CFOs which were much more experienced, much more senior. Here, coming and telling them what I expect them to do doesn't work. It's about collaboration, brainstorming ideas, finding the best way which we can work to achieve the commonly valuable result for both of us. In some cases, depending again on personality of the CFO, you can go a little bit more direct way and tell rather than collaborate.
Yeah, and then again, for someone who's, I imagine, always been part of big finance functions, what is a high-performing finance function for you? How would you define a high-performing team?
High-performing team for me is not only about the tangible assets. Of course, delivering on targets, hitting results is important. However, my true measure of the high-performing team is when the team can operate independently. So they take ownership, they make aligned decision, and produce quality work. Eventually, in the practical world, is when I can take a break and disconnect, and I don't have to be on my phone checking the emails and answering on the emails every other hour. So that's the true measure.
Yeah, okay, good. So I said it's empowering your team, then I guess is quite important. Getting the good people, good attitude, and what's the right structure in a finance team for you? Like, how would you structure?
The right structure for me, I always approach it, I need to have three fundamental pillars. First pillar is core accounting. This is where, all the bookkeeping is happening. They are responsible for compliance, all the regulatory requirements. The second pillar for me is FP&A function. And FP&A function is not the only function which I expect to produce report. For me, it's also produce reports and analyze the data. They are the one who should know the nitty-gritty of what is happening within in the business, which then can raise it to my attention, where we have variances, what we need to, why this variances is what we need to be addressed. And then the third pillar is that business partnering copilot. In a small organization, you would, like SMEs, you would expect that third pillar sits more with the CFO. So in a larger organization like Nestle or it is Sodexo, we will look into that business partnering, especially if you operate in a multiple business units environment, that you will have a dedicated business partner to each of the business unit who can become more specialist of your area.
And then just picking up on FP&A for any up-and-coming talents, that's all they ever want to say. What do you want to do? I want to be an FP&A. And obviously in Middle East, in general, the teams are more lean. Well, obviously you've worked for multinationals where, as you said, you have the three pillars. What is FP&A to you? And, for somebody who's maybe just done their exams and they say, hey, I want to be an FP&A. What skills do you look for? If you were hiring just an FP&A analyst, a junior position, what would you be looking for? And just to give a bit of insight on that.
I would look for those competencies of, and the curiosity which we talk about, being commercially savvy. When I look for FP&A, I don't necessarily look on their qualifications, because I need to have a right character, the person who will be comfortable to get out of from the laptop, go and see the operations, speak with the people in the business, understand what's happening, understand the business, and then obviously receive a result, produce a report, and then interpret the numbers, give a commentary, but in a meaningful and understandable way to operations, not to go with them, the KPIs, which we don't necessarily understand and how they're calculated, translate in a simple language to then drive the actions.
Yeah. It is such a common question we get, especially these, younger Gen Z, and, you've heard it there, case in point from somebody who's hired many FP&A people, curiosity, getting out of your desk. I think that's probably the most difficult thing for finance teams sometimes, that they don't want to leave their desk. And, as you said, business partner with other people within the business. So I want to discuss, going back to being a leader. you're a very successful female leader in a tough market, and the role of leader as an enabler, not an expert. So what's your views on that?
Look, we touched on that, though I had my accounting and accounting degree, I took the commercial finance route over the traditional accounting finance route. And so I can say I'm not an expert in accounting, but I successfully grew my career to where I am. Now I'm a CFO. And what is important, you as a leader, you don't have to be an expert on every single field.
Yeah.
You need to have an ability to hire the right people and put the right people in the right place to be successful. And especially, it's a balance. In my case, because I'm strong on the commercial side and probably lack an expertise on the accounting side. So I make sure I invest.
Get a good controller.
And I have a good finance controller, a good chief accountant who can support me and facilitate and take that so I can focus on what I'm passionate about. And actually, we haven't spoken about it, but I think what is important within a team when we're talking about building a right team is understanding the individuals within the team. And it's not only understanding what is their past experiences, what are skills and competencies. You need to understand what they're passionate about. Yeah. Because when the people are passionate about something, they will, and you put them into that work, you will get the best outcome of that, because they will become and they will be getting, like a pleasure out of what they're doing.
And I think it's so important, and that's, again, comes down to understanding your team, building relationships with them, ask them what they like outside work, getting to know them personally. So I think this probably feeds into our next point, which I think as a CFO or someone senior in finance, a word which is so important is delegation. And I know you sort of fed into that, the delegation to the chief accountant. But how have you went about, developing your delegation skills in your career?
Developing my delegation skills for me probably more comes through my experience. So most of my, I would say, career building, it happened in UK when I was working for Nestle and afterwards in Sodexo. And this is where in most of those companies, you had a culture of empowering. So me as a young professional, I was empowered to make decisions. I was empowered to, run a P&L, together with a category manager. We were given a KPI, so we were given a direction. The expectation was deliver this turnover, deliver this profitability. But afterwards, we were kind of left to get on with it. Get on with it and do it. So there was no micromanagement. So my own experience being empowered by my line managers at the time is actually shaped me as a manager, because I saw the benefit and how I have evolved and how I grew of that. And this is what I want for my team, for the team who works with me.
I think it comes back to, if you hire smart people, let them be smart. There's no point hiring someone who is academically or professionally, really, really good, and then, you micromanage them. I think that is quite common, because obviously the position that I'm in, nobody calls us saying I love my job. It's all, and it's more mid-management where there's a bit of a squeeze, above or beyond them. So Olga, that's went quick. We've got some quick fire questions.
Sure.
To get to know you a little bit better as a person. So one word that could best describe success in life.
Love what you do. Good. Like, get the pleasure of what you do.
Be passionate about it.
Be passionate. Be passionate about. And if you do something which you're not passionate about, change.
Yeah, exactly. What could your career have been if you weren't in finance? An high rocks athlete, or what do you think you would have been?
No, I think, the sequence on the event led me to where I was. But I believe if I didn't met my husband, didn't move to UK, I most likely would have taken over my parents' business and continued to grow it, and eventually would have been an entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think the key things to take from today's conversation, it's the commercial side of things. And I think, as you said, it's being curious, not being afraid to ask questions, because I think that's the biggest obstacle I find for the up and coming finance talent, is that because it's a different generation where it's a lot about their phones, it's a different vibe. So I think the skills, I think you're saying being curious, asking the questions and being proactive, I think is
share ideas, as I
Share-
said.
yeah.
Like, don't be shy. Share ideas.
Be brave.
Be brave.
Be
Be
brave.
brave. Like, there's no harm.
Yeah.
No one's gonna go.
You can't win the lotto unless you have a ticket. It's very simple.
Yes.
So look, Olga, thank you so much for coming on. It was a great conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect. So we hope you enjoyed this episode, and make sure to subscribe to our podcast, and see you on our next episode.